The year is 2022. A worldwide pandemic has claimed almost 6 million lives worldwide. Our democracy is under attack by the very people that claim to be patriots. We live in a country that doesn't trust the media, their government, or even their own doctor. Conspiracy theories have taken hold of our neighbors, our family, people we have known our entire lives. Through the fog, there is hope. In the distance, we can see a group of people dedicated to battling the misinformation campaign designed to destroy our way of life. Every Friday, they present important news, dispel and debunk conspiracy theories, and desperately search for the ever-evolving truth. Welcome, everybody, to the ever-evolving truth. Happy Friday. This is, first of all, I'm here with the lovely Leah. Of course, my name is Jeff.
You could have skipped me today.
You should have. I can never skip you.
You should.
You think anybody would listen to this show if it was just me? No. The answer is no.
I'm actually thinking about that. I don't know, maybe.
No. Okay, maybe. I was just, this, for once in the past, I don't know, month or two, this feels like a normal Friday recording to me.
What do you mean?
Well, I don't know. I felt discombobulated and it looks like even though we're trying some new things here as far as the cameras go, I feel like it's part of the routine. We skipped a couple Tuesdays and Fridays and vacation and school starting and that kind of stuff. I feel like now this is part of the routine.
Yeah, I think
for the first time in a long time.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. I'm excited for the show. For the first time in a long time, we actually have a guest.
It's our first in-person guest.
First in-person guest ever.
Ever. Yeah, we've never interviewed anybody in person.
I mean, I have.
I have. Yeah, with Amanda Van Grossi. But
for different shows.
Yeah, not for Teat. This is Teat's first.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
And we'd like to try as much as we can to get people into the studio. But
or really, Jeff just is trying to lure people down to his basement. That's really the truth of it.
Right. We don't know what's going to happen. It could be you could get stuck down here forever.
Yeah. There's a casting couch.
We'll feed you though. See, I was excited to move in here because I like to cook. For people. I don't like to cook just for myself.
Right.
That's depressing. Mm-hmm. So I was excited to get here and cook.
Right.
And as soon as I got here, we had one girl turn into a pescatarian. You barely eat. Enzo eats all day, but it's like, so when it comes time to actually eat a meal,
he's not hungry.
Mm-hmm. And Nina will eat sometimes, a little bit at a time. So I end up eating all the food. So yes, Leah's correct. I'm trying to lure people down here to the basement. I'm going to lock you down here. I'm going to hold you against your will, but you will get fed good food, not like terrible food. You won't be tortured or anything.
You won't be tied to a table and force-fed French fries like that one movie we saw.
Yeah, one of the student films in my class. Oh, yeah, that's a whole other show. So yes, we're very excited to have a guest on here today. It's Heather Baum. You've heard her on the show before. Mm-hmm. We are going to talk to her about the CDC, the WHO, health, the government, and how they've had their hands in our health.
Yeah. As
far as eating goes for so long, why we should trust them, why we shouldn't, maybe. I don't know. The conversation could go anywhere, but I'm really excited to get to talk to her.
I think one thing I'd like to ask her about is this new booster.
Yes.
I'm curious to get her opinion on this.
Yeah, remind me to put that in the notes because it was approved without finishing the human trials.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not giving it to my kids. Right now, I will tell you I'm going to wait a year before my kids can get this one.
Well, I mean, I'm fine with it if it's normal, if that's normal for boosters.
I don't know that it is.
But I don't know if it is. Maybe it is.
Yeah.
If it is, I wouldn't mind it. I mean, I don't care.
For myself, fine.
My problem is if it's abnormal, or if it is normal, why are we putting this news out like it's news? Well, like the flu shot, did they go through, is it approved before human trials? The flu shot every year is just it's the base is there and they just tweak it.
I would
imagine the COVID vaccine is the same.
Yeah, it is. I don't
So
know that
it's already approved. It's already been tried on humans. They don't need to do it again.
Yeah, I never even saw that reported. Where did you see that? Like
What?
where they reported that they ended the human trials? I didn't hear that.
Well, they didn't end them. The FDA approved it before the human trials were done. It was just a headline I saw. I read it.
Oh, I'm sure. I wonder. That's a good question.
But
I
if
don't
that's
know, 'cause I
normal,
didn't
why are we
hear it.
reporting it? Because it's just going to freak people the fuck out.
It was probably just one Republican news site that reported it that way.
If it's normal, if that's normal behavior, and we've been dealing with boosters and vaccines our entire lives for over a century now, and that's normal. The headline made it seem like it's abnormal, and it's going to freak people out.
Well, of course, yeah.
We don't need to do that. Just
Well-
put out the fucking booster.
Well, they don't care about the booster. They care about people clicking on their
Yes,
their
no, I
article.
know. You're right, but maybe we can get some clarification on that. So lots of stuff to talk about there. There's so much to talk about here. We don't have a whole lot of time. We have about 20 minutes. So we have to get through this shit really quickly. I think no time for fucking around like you do every week. You just bullshit about what we do.
Oh yeah, I care so much about my week. I just bullshit about it. I'm always complaining about my internet issues, and
We find ourselves 25 minutes in, and we're still talking about ourselves. Can't have any of that today.
I don't lead the show, bro.
Well, I don't want to be rude. I don't want to interrupt you.
Oh, shut the fuck up.
I think the big thing that we need to talk about, once again, is Trump's emails. I mean, his stealing of top secret classified documents and tossing them about his office.
Oh my God.
There's so much that happened since Tuesday.
First of all, but I want to clarify what Jeff just said.
I was being facetious.
Were you being facetious? Because I can't remember what her name is. But she went on Fox News and was like,
So this was one of Trump's lawyers. This is the lawyer
no, it was not a lawyer. It was one of his previous cabinet members or somebody like that. It was
I saw one of his lawyers went on Fox News.
Oh, I'm sure, but we're probably not talking about the same thing.
Maybe not.
So she went on and she was like, the government wants us to. She's like, I've been in Trump's office.
That was a lawyer.
Doesn't look. That was a lawyer.
That was a lawyer.
You've got to be fucking kidding me. Was that Jennifer Bob chick? That chick. She's going to be our third segment on Tuesday. So tune in for that because what the fuck?
She's not even on the case that involves the secret documents.
No, she's not. That's
she's
why
on
she never talked to him
his civil case in New York.
She's a civil attorney.
But okay, so let's back up just for a second. So we are talking about the same thing. There's Jennifer Bob.
Yes.
Appeared on Fox News. And they were asking her about this photo that they found. Now the photo, you've probably seen it. It's everywhere. They've been flashing on every news site, including Fox. They're just reporting it in a different way.
It wasn't found either. It was released.
It was released by the DOJ.
Yeah.
So what this photo is, it's a crime scene.
Yeah.
There is one of those little cards there that said 2A, which for evidence, there's a ruler at the bottom.
Yeah.
And
boxes
the files, the top secret files, were laid out. They were pulled out of the box that they were found and spread out across the floor. And anything that didn't have a cover sheet was covered.
Right.
For obvious reasons.
This
was a crime scene photo. Nobody implied that this is what his office looked like, or this is what they came into. Nobody implied that except for her. So go ahead.
So she's like, I have never seen it like that. I don't know why they went in there and they tore his office apart and they threw that all on the floor. The irrelevance of that, one, is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Two, anybody in America who has ever seen 1 minute of Law and Order SVU or Dateline or CSI has seen a photo like this.
Yeah.
And they understand that it's an evidentiary photo. It's not that hard to figure out. And they are so desperate at this point that all they can do to muddy the waters is just blatantly try to change the topic about it. Yes, the FBI raided Trump's house because he's messy. That's what they were there for. But the important thing is the fact that this motherfucker had TSI material in his desk.
Yeah, so they're worried, which she was speaking to the optics of it, right? So
Right.
let's back it up even further because we didn't even really touch on this because it was so ridiculous. But Trump was claiming at one point, now he seems to have abandoned this, but it's relevant because everything that he does, everything that he says, everything that he claims, every strategy that they're putting forward,
Right.
Essentially proves the previous one was a complete lie and that he was obstructing justice. Mm-hmm. He's implicating himself at every turn.
Right.
But this week this week takes the cake. So if we back up, Trump was claiming that the FBI planted evidence
Yes.
and that he had video surveillance proof. Mm-hmm. But he just refused to release it, of course.
Of course.
So flash forward to this week, this Jennifer Baum woman comes on Fox News and she starts talking about how Donald Trump would never leave his office like this.
Right.
Because he has people in and out all the time.
That was the biggest part of that.
So, first of all, the FBI and the DOJ were not releasing the photo to show that he had the documents out. Mm-mm. They released the photo to show what they found.
To show the documents.
To show that they found the highest level of top secret documents in his office.
So when they take him to court to go to jail for treason, they can show those photos along with the actual piece of
evidence. So Donald Trump is so upset by the fact that people are going to think that he had these documents just laying on the floor in his office and then he looked messy. Mm-hmm. He instructed his lawyer to go on Fox News and talk about how clean his office is. And in doing so, proved the DOJ, one of the DOJ's biggest concerns and potentially, if not definitely, a crime, mm-hmm. which is the fact that they're worried what they're doing right now is a damage assessment. What's compromised? Who did he show these to? Who saw them?
Exactly.
Who touched them? Who was in his office? Who was in this unsecured location and saw it? His lawyer, who's not even on this case, proved that people that did not have security clearance were in and out of an office, unsecured office, where these documents were kept, whether it's in his desk or a box on the floor or wherever the fuck it was. It's not secure. And she just admitted mm-hmm. that people were in and out of his office with his documents. That's a fucking crime. People go to jail for that all the time, Leah. All the time they do.
I know. And, we were talking earlier, and this is sheerly speculation on my part, like 110%. But I do think it's a little ironic that the call or the tip supposedly came in somewhere within a week of that Bedminster golf tournament. Now, Mar-a-Lago is not Bedminster, but they've, again, like I said, those documents were in his desk, which means they weren't in a box in a closet. How do we know he didn't take them to Bedminster?
And even if they were locked up, he could have taken them.
I really, truly believe that whoever... I don't know why I feel this way, but I think there's a really good fucking chance that the call was made somehow tied to that because it's so close. And I really want to know, and I also said to you earlier, one, there's more than one leaker, right? So it's definitely somebody in the family. Jeff and I are both on the same page. We think it's Ivanka. I think it's Ivanka and Jared. I think it's possible Eric is one of them. The only one I don't think it is Don Jr.
Although, wouldn't it be ironic if it was? Because he lost his shit apparently today on social media about
Which
this.
one? Don Jr. did?
Don Jr.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like it's almost like he's trying to sell it too much.
Oh, he's always trying to sell it too much.
Wouldn't that be funny if though he was like,
it would make sense.
This is I got you back, Dad, for treating me like the
redheaded
stepchild.
No, I think it's Eric. He's the smart one. He's going to be the one that comes out on top. Just wait and see.
No, that's what I'm saying. But wouldn't it be ironic if it was Don Jr., who we all just thought he was trying to earn his dad's love all this time, And here he was just setting them up.
I don't think I think Eric might be trying to earn it. I think Don Jr. wants him dead so he can take it over and bump off Ivanka. Well, that's what I think. I think he's a true monster, but that's not the point.
No.
I really wonder what he was going to do with those documents, because at this point, before it was like, they were in a box, and then it came out that there were notes in the margin. Well, maybe he did that when he was president, right? Okay, but I'll give him that one. Then it came out that he declassified them and that he went through them, and he's giving all this stuff, right? Because if you remember on the day...
He claimed he declassified them.
Right, but
there's no proof that he actually
did. On
the
day that it actually happened, he didn't declassify them. That's a complete lie. We know that for a fact. Everybody that's worked for him said it was bullshit.
Yeah.
So even his cronies, like Mick Mulvaney, I really think that he had plans for them, specifically the ones in his drawer. And on the day of the raid, one of the first responses was, they took my passport. So he does have video surveillance, because they took his passport, because his passport, which they gave back to him, was on top of the documents in his drawer.
Yeah.
So don't tell me he didn't know what documents they were and where they were. If they are in your top drawer or in your desk drawer in your office where your passport is, there was a fucking reason. There was a reason. And I truly believe now he was at least attempting to sell out America in a really big way for money or freedom or something for himself, for strictly personal reasons. And I think that one of his kids has a conscience. That's what I think.
I was talking to you earlier. I said the reason I think it's Ivanka and Kirshner is because they have viable, successful businesses right now. Well, that too. And I don't think they're willing to risk going to jail for this motherfucker or to get him another term. You know what I mean?
But they could have just pretended it wasn't there. Why turn him in unless...
they would be implicated. They would. Think?
Well, I guess yeah.
You don't think Donald Trump would have turned on everyone to try and get himself out?
Yeah, I guess.
Oh, look, if it were me, I'd turn on him immediately, because I know that if I didn't turn on him, he would turn on me.
I would have turned on him when I was 2, but that's the difference between me and everyone
assuming
else.
I didn't have any ethical compass, I would, just to save my own ass, I would have turned on him. So yeah, that's what's. And he wants this. Let's talk quick about this whole master thing. Yeah.
So there is a judge, a Trump-appointed judge, who is overseeing this, and that's the one that decided that certain things were presidential privilege. Now Trump wants a special master who is supposedly not, on either side of the aisle, appointed by a judge, appointed by Donald Trump, who has given them the chance. First of all, they brought the document to the judge, okay? And the judge said, here, this is how you should rewrite it.
Right. This is wrong. I can't do anything with this.
So this is what you need to do to fix it. Bring it back to me in a couple hours and I'll sign it. That's pretty much what happened.
Do you think that judge would have given the same courtesy to Joe Biden's counsel?
Absolutely not.
No, this is the problem. This is what I was telling you. Not that you disagree, but something that I said, remind me to mention this on the show. This is why voting is so important. This is why even if we lose the House, we need to keep the Senate.
Yeah.
Because even if we don't get anything done over the next 2 years, that'll be frustrating. But Biden will be able to push his judges through so that next time this happens, it's not a Trump judge. It's a reasonable judge who takes the law seriously and isn't looking to give a handout, a free pass, a get out of jail free card to their God.
Right.
To their orange fucking God. So voting is so important. Don't listen to what they're saying about the House getting, it's going to flip. It might. It might not.
Yeah.
But there's a good chance that it will. Don't listen to it. Don't let that discourage you from voting.
Get out there and vote. Straight blue on your ticket. That's the best thing you can do to preserve our democracy.
Right now, today, it's the only thing you can do to preserve our democracy.
Right. So they want to point the special master.
So the special master's job is to go in there and decide what should be given back to Trump.
What is attorney-client privilege? Not basically. No judge, not even this one, is going to accept the executive privilege argument because he's not an executive anymore. He's a fucking citizen.
Well, yeah, I agree.
So no judge is going to give these documents back, all the documents back. But the thing is, the reason why the DOJ released this photo and released another court filing. Trump he filed for this special master request to try and delay the whole process. That's all ultimately what he's trying to do. He's trying to delay the process. And he might succeed in doing that. It's not going to help him in the long run, but he's going to try and delay the process. The DOJ releases or puts a court filing in, which is public record now. Anybody can find it. And the media covered it and found it, and essentially said that there's proof now that Trump has been dipping and dodging the FBI for 18 months.
18 months.
He obstructed justice. So you put all of this aside. Let's say his argument, which it's not, but let's say his argument is 100% valid and he wins in court, and that he had a right to these documents. They were essentially his, everything. Let's say he wins that argument.
Right.
He still obstructed justice.
Yes.
Because if he didn't have anything to hide, he should have just cooperated, and then it would have came out in court and he would have won.
Right.
But he didn't, because he's an asshole. And this is, it's obviously early. We don't know if they're going to indict him. Every day that goes by, I believe more and more that they will. They cannot not indict him. It would be detrimental to the country. But I'm assuming now, let's say this is going to catch up with him and he's going to do jail time, right? Just assuming.
Right. Okay.
It is finally the asshole bully that pushed kids like me in the mud and made fun of us because we were fat and ugly and all this other kind of stuff is finally going to get that karmic punishment that they fucking deserve.
We'll see.
After decades.
We'll see.
If that happens, it's going to feel great.
It will feel great. I just...
Because he fucking deserves the death penalty.
He does. He deserves
the death
it.
penalty
But
is what he deserves.
I still don't see him doing any time.
He's an asshole. He's a fucking prick.
He should, and it's going
to
be
be a prick if you vote for him
mistake,
again.
But I don't think he's going to do a day of jail time.
Well, we'll see. But I do think they're going to indict him. Whether they win in court or not is another question. But I think they have to indict him. They have to press charges.
I agree.
Let's see. What else do we have real quick? Neil Collins. You want to go to Neil Collins?
Oh, my God. This motherfucker.
So if you listen to last week's show, we talked about Neil Collins, who both of us here, I mean, we didn't praise him, but we had a discussion about whether what happened to him or his change of quote unquote heart was authentic and genuine.
Well, to answer your question,
and we both kind of agreed that it was, right?
Well, I wouldn't say that it was. I don't think either of us said that we thought it really was or wasn't. I think we were a little unsure, but in my opinion, it didn't matter. Yeah. It didn't matter why, because the problem wasn't necessarily that he voted for it or against it. The problem was that he had no idea what would happen to a woman who was 15 months pregnant with her water breaking.
15 weeks, yeah.
Or 15 weeks. No, but 15 months. If you're 15 months pregnant, go see a doctor.
Right, you're like a cow or something.
Yeah, go see something
like
else.
Like a
dinosaur. So on, not yesterday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, there was a vote, August 30th. So no, it was Tuesday. In the South Carolina House of Representatives, and he was swamped because they brought it to the floor, and he refused to vote on it, as we said before, and then he voted against their actual heartbeat bill. He said it needed to be completely revamped, basically. They went and revamped it, and they brought it back, and he did vote for it with the new stipulations. The new stipulations do account for rape and incest up to 12 weeks of pregnancy. 12 weeks. Most women don't know they're even pregnant until 8 weeks. You can you can miss your period for 2 weeks for a plethora of reasons.
You mean months? 2 months?
No, I mean weeks, period. Like, you could be 2 weeks late, because that's usually everybody's argument is, well, if you're 2 weeks late, you should know. No, that's not true. So anyway, the best part about this is he goes into this whole thing about this 19-year-old girl. And if you remember the story, she was 15 weeks pregnant. So he did. And as far as I know, this poor girl was not raped. And she was not a victim of incest. I do not know if that's the case or not. But as far as I know, no. And she was 19. And she was 15 weeks. So signing the bill at 12 weeks, what was that for?
Right.
It was for optics.
Yeah, it didn't
This whole thing was for optics. It wouldn't have changed a goddamn thing for that 19-year-old girl. And it's not going to change a goddamn thing for any other woman in North Carolina. You are a piece of human fucking fecal matter, Neil Collins. And then he goes on Facebook.
Yeah.
And he's such a fucking coward, too. He goes on Facebook and does this post. And guys, if you want to go to his Facebook post and read it, I did.
It's really long.
It's like literally, Jeff, right? Like 3 pages?
It's like a novel.
I will, I have pictures of me scrolling through it. You could do it that way. But you don't need to read it. There's articles and all that kind of shit. But he goes in here and he says, due to complicated procedure, I could not speak on the bill once I knew what it was. And we only had 10 minutes to do so at the end. They fixed it for 10 minutes. It took them 10 minutes to rewrite the bill. So they knew going in it was going to be 12 weeks. This was all a scam. I guarantee it. So he says this big long thing about how we need to communicate better with one another. And he has, I believe, 11 photos under this fucking novel. And it's like, this was my phone for a day. So then he posts screenshots, pictures of his dad's grave, somebody spitting on it. Look, I'm not condoning any of that.
Nobody condones that.
Nobody is condoning that behavior. People are assholes. But if you're going to literally use a young girl's life and her ability to create life in the future, and your vote ruining that for her, and then you make this big stance about that you need to change the bill dramatically, people were expecting better from you.
Yeah, and here's my among many things that I have a problem with this guy, the one that I have the most problem with is this particular story. Yeah. And there's many stories that have to do with incest and rape. Mm-hmm. And we obviously, the majority of the country agrees. Overwhelming 80% of the country agrees that no matter what your views on abortion are, agree that it should be an exception for rape and incest.
No matter what, yeah.
So, okay, congratulations, you got that in there. The story that he told, so seemingly heartfelt, was a medical thing.
It was a
medical thing. So why isn't there a medical exemption in this fucking bill for up to birth? Because again, throughout his ridiculous word salad ranting Facebook post, he talks about how the extreme left wants abortion up until the 9th month of pregnancy. It doesn't exist. I don't know how many times I have to say this. Yeah. It doesn't fucking exist.
It doesn't exist. And
you induce labor to a baby. You want to call it a baby at that point? Fine. You induce labor to a baby that is not viable because of something that went wrong with the president. The lungs didn't develop. It doesn't have a brain. There was one in Florida that I read about where the skull didn't form. If they delivered that baby to term and let it live like Republicans want, it would have been the most excruciating 3 or 4 minutes of life that a human being can exist. Are you telling me that's pro-life?
And the mother?
Are you telling me that's an abortion? If you induce earlier and let that being, that fetus, baby, whatever you want to call it, die a comfortable death? You're calling that an abortion? Is that what you're doing, Republicans? Fuck you. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist, one, which it's just such an
It's
partial.
so irresponsible to call that an abortion.
The whole partial birth abortion thing is just a complete and utter lie,
It's
too.
fucking disgusting.
But back to what you were saying, the medical thing, the problem is the reason, all right, her water broke. The baby was still attached to the uterus and the placenta. So at that point, she was the life support of that fetus, which is basically all a mother is for the first 7 months of pregnancy. Deal with it. I said it. It's true. Look it up. It's science. That's all you are. You're the incubator, right? You're keeping that fetus alive. A fetal heartbeat is a reflex.
Yeah.
It is not a sign of life. And we have to get past thinking that it is. Because the other part of this that really disgusted me, he mentions that he went viral like 3 times in his Facebook.
It was like 5 times. I didn't even finish it.
And you didn't even finish it. See? Ick. That's ick number 1. Ick number 2 is he goes through here and he talks about the 19-year-old girl. And he says, on July 7th, I had an infamous phone call with the doctor about the 19-year-old girl. And then on July 15th, he sent out a 2-page survey to every 2020 voter in his precinct. Okay? 722 surveys were mailed. 43 were returned. 43. The results, 43 out of 722. That's not a lot. Keep that in mind.
Right.
The results clearly show the vast majority of every very conservative people, which that doesn't make sense at all, want exceptions to abortion. So 64% agree with overturning Roe to return it to the states. 81 believe in health of the mother exceptions. 72 believe rape exceptions in the first 12 weeks. 72 believe incest exceptions in the first 12 weeks. 57 believe in criminalizing doctors. 82 believe in more money to pregnancy centers. Think about that.
Can I just explain to you how ridiculous this survey is?
It's insane. It's stupid. But go ahead.
Do you know what 64% of 43 is?
Please tell me.
It's 27 and a half.
27 and a half
27 and a half people.
722.
Well, do you think that's enough? Do you think even 722
a
surveys is enough to
remotely-
represent the entire
State?
population of South Carolina?
No, it's not. Every single representative needs to send that out, and every single constituent needs to send it back. This is bullshit. 90% believe in more money to the DSS foster care system. Yeah, duh. That should happen anyway. Common sense. 86 believe teachers should receive 6 weeks of paid parental leave. They do. I don't even understand why that was a question. 71% believe in fetal abnormality exceptions. That would be great, but they didn't put that in the bill.
No.
The only thing they put in the bill was the 12-week exception for rape and incest.
Yeah.
That is it.
Yep. That's it wasn't a
Nothing
massive
in there
overhaul.
saying if the mother's water breaks at 15 weeks and there's still a fetal heartbeat, they can detach the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Nothing saying that. So then I just want to read the very end because there are paragraphs and paragraphs. But here it goes. I knew at the end no one would cheer a nuanced position. I fully understand the comments are about to be all negative. It's why I led off with something more important than this issue. Fuck you for that. Where we receive our information, how we communicate with each other, and can we return to being a community that knows one another, or do we just tweet insults at one another? I'm trying to do my part to be the best me to my ability. With that, I am now humbly your punching bag. Nobody has pity for you. You're a horrible, horrible, horrible human being. And I really hope that you are haunted by this decision for the rest of your life.
I really hope, yeah.
I hope
so too.
And this is horrible. He has a daughter. I can't wait until she's old enough for you to have to look her in the eye and explain to her why you did what you did.
Yeah, there's people that are like, I hope your daughter has to go through this. I don't wish that on. It's not
No, I
her
don't.
fault.
But it's
But
your
here's
fault.
what I do hope. I hope your daughter grows up to despise you.
Oh, she will.
That's what I hope. And then the other thing that really drove me nuts about this is he went to his pastor for counsel.
Of course he did. And, you know, last week we were doing articles on how the Republicans are flip-flopping on abortion, but this is the example. They're going to try to make themselves sound like they're, like, the rest of his thing is like, I understand that it needs to be better, but I'm not the only person on the state. No, but you were able to hold up that vote.
Yeah.
You could have held up this one, too.
You know, so this, just when I'm like, I give a little bit of a, this happens. I'm right about them. They're all terrible.
They are.
Even the people that are like, well, Mitt Romney's kind. No, he's not.
No, because he
He
wouldn't.
voted with Trump 97% of the time.
Yeah.
They're all fucking horrible.
They are.
And on that note, we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we are going to talk to our friend Heather about all things health and health related to government input and how they have their grubby mitts and everything, and how do we navigate our way through life trying to make healthy decisions when it seems like there's just nothing but a big headwind coming from TV, the government, our parents, family members, and much more. So stick around. We will be right back after this. Welcome back to the Ever-Evolving Truth. We are here with, we have the honor of being here with Heather Baum. You have the honor of being our very first studio guest.
I feel so privileged.
You should be. But the privilege is really ours.
It is.
Thanks.
And we certainly appreciate you taking time out of your very busy schedule to spend it here with us. I want to point out that Leah has pointed out that you came with books, a laptop.
Yep.
You are more prepared for this interview than we are.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's a type A ICU nurse for you right there.
So we had, well, first of all, Heather is a friend of the show. She's been on before. You've heard her. Last time we had you on was in the middle of the COVID pandemic.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. The vaccines were just becoming a thing.
Yeah, yeah. And you were, and we do have some questions about the vaccine that aren't on the notes, or the booster, the upcoming booster. So we want to get your thoughts on. But you were fantastic on that show. You gave us a lot of insight because you have firsthand experience with people that have COVID, and you shared some horror stories with us. So I'm excited. I shouldn't say excited. Excited is the wrong word when it comes to COVID. I'm curious. I'm interested to get your thoughts on where we're at all at this point.
Yeah.
But the most important thing that we have to talk about right now, if you listened to last week's show, Leah and I had a debate on what your title was.
I hate you so much, Jeff.
And I just want everybody to know. I mean, it's important that we all know what your actual title is. So if you could share that with everyone.
Jeff wins, ding, ding, ding. I am a nurse practitioner.
I knew it.
Yes, not a physician assistant. However, we do function very similarly. We just have different kind of models of practice. And Leo was also right, because I did spend a lot of time in the hospital. I was in critical care for 20 years between being a nurse aide, a nurse, and then a nurse practitioner. And then I did transition to an outpatient clinic. It's, I was getting a little too old to do 12-hour day shifts, night shifts, 24-hour shifts, and all that jazz, and leave that for the youngins. So I've had a very successful journey after bariatric surgery. I've lost 150 pounds with the surgery and all the lifestyle changes that come with it.
So let me just ask you right there, because, well, first of all, I want to say you look fantastic. You do, but
yeah, you do.
I don't want to. We've had this discussion on either this show or the other show, but when I compliment people, it comes off as very creepy. I've
known you for a very long time, so I don't take it that way.
Right, you do, but people listening are probably like, "Ooh, it's a cringe." I think what I'm going to go with, though, is you look healthy.
Thank you. Yes.
And I think that's probably the best compliment someone could give someone like yourself, because this is a very popular surgery. I know 4 or 5 people
Yeah.
that are either getting it or have already got it, and
Yep.
some of them have been successful and some of them have not. This is not just a magic weight eraser, right? This is
Yep.
you, and anybody who follows your social media you can see that you put in effort.
Yeah.
It's a struggle every day, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I say that surgery, medications, none of it is a magic pill. Unfortunately, we don't have a magic pill to fight obesity, but they're tools, and they're tools that we can use. You just have to use them in conjunction with the lifestyle changes. The surgery makes it easier because it does initially help you lose weight quickly if you're, following the guidelines, but then it's putting in the effort of, exercise and fueling your body and hydrating. The biggest and hardest piece is the mindset and changing your mindset.
Yeah.
I was a huge emotional eater. I put all my weight on pretty much with pregnancies, but I had a lot of problems with emotional eating after a very long day in the ICU. And so, overcoming that part was definitely the hardest part.
So, I mean, imagine being in the ICU. You've seen a lot of horrible things, like tragic things. And, we knew each other in high school, but we don't know each other on a great personal level. But you strike me as a very empathetic person. So those tragic moments that you had to witness, those, just part of life in a lot of cases, it sounds like it hit you on a personal level, so you would take that home and eat it.
Yeah, you really do, because while you're there, you're very focused. You are emotionally invested. It's very physical. It's very taxing mentally. Trying to keep the sickest of the sick patients alive. And I had a family member one time of someone who passed asked me how you become immune to it, and I was like, you never do. But you have to tuck it down inside and be strong for the family and be strong for the patient. And it really wears on you after time.
And then you don't really have someone to go home to. Even if you do have a supportive family, they don't.
It's hard to
they don't know.
understand. It's hard to conceptualize if you don't do it. Nursing has a huge rate of alcohol abuse and drug abuse and addiction, because I think a lot of the stress that we undergo from the long hours to, the things that we see.
This is part of the reason why when people like yourself were just demonized during the COVID pandemic for not just doing their jobs, but encouraging mask wearing. Even in the hospital, people would throw fits about having to wear a mask in the hospital.
Yeah.
Crazy to me. Like, really? You're in a hospital.
It's like a simple thing that you could do, maybe not even for yourself, but for other people.
For someone else,
because it was the best thing that we knew to do. Like,
right.
You were watching science happen in real life. And it's not something we've ever really had to do before. There's vaccines for a lot of things that happened after years of research and years of studies. And now diseases were eradicated because of vaccines. But we were working in real time with a disease that we didn't understand, that science didn't understand. And it was something that we've never seen before.
Right.
I would tell people, look, even if the mask it turned out to be ineffective, if it saved 1 or 2 lives, isn't it worth it? Like, it's so not inconvenient to put a piece of cloth over your mouth.
Right. Like I said earlier, my sister has stage 4 breast cancer. My grandmother's 94 with emphysema. Like, if they got sick and I was around them, I would have felt horrible.
Right.
Horrible. That's what I kept saying too. And with the school thing too. Like, I couldn't imagine my kid having to live with giving it to somebody who dies, and they know that. Like,
right.
I don't know. I just, that bothered me that people didn't want to do it.
Leah, we didn't want to hide the kids' smiles.
Oh, that's true. They're so important, those pretty smiles.
So I don't want to spend the whole time we have with you talking about your surgery and everything like that, but this is something that people try to do, even though, like we just mentioned, it's not a get rich quick fix. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's not a be all end all.
Yeah.
But I think people believe it's going to be.
Right.
So I just want to take a second for anybody that's considering it out there. What should they expect? Like, what, you see, I got soda here. you got to give up soda. You got to give
Right.
up eating the way that you used to eat. Do you have to give up everything, or is there some moderation, things that you can still enjoy?
So it's a tool to really relearn how to feed your body. So, you know, we live in a world where access to processed foods, fast food. I was just, you know, having a conversation the other day and remembered we had fast food when I was a kid like twice a year. It was a treat.
Yeah.
Like it was not an everyday occurrence, you know, and there's a whole lot of reasons, you know, that the obesity epidemic has become what it is, but you're just retraining your body to rely on the protein that's going to keep you fuller longer, to feed yourself with whole fruits and vegetables. And, you know, a lot of research has looked at the evolution of obesity, and a lot of it came with the changes in the dietary recommendations around the low fat diet. They were pushing carbs rather than low fat, and when you take the fat out of foods, it tastes like crap. So you have to fill it with artificial sweeteners or high fructose corn syrup, and that was around the time that the obesity epidemic really took off. So it's kind of learning to get away from those types of foods too. And then the soda, you have to get away from carbonated stuff after surgery, just because you don't want the potential to like expand the stomach, but it's also the artificial sweeteners and chemicals and things that are in it too that just aren't good for a healthy diet.
You know, my mom tried to sell me on no fat mayonnaise when I was a kid, and I threw that shit right back in her face. That was garbage.
You should have gotten.
I mean, it might be better than Miracle Whip.
Oh god, Miracle Whip is awful.
It's terrible.
Awful. You're the only one in the world that likes Miracle Whip.
Do you did you have the gastric sleeve or bypass?
So it's been a long journey for me. It's been 12 years. I have actually had 3 surgeries.
Oh, wow.
I had a gastric band in 2010.
Okay.
The sleeve has been around for a long time, but it was kind of coming back into popularity then. The band had been around for a while, but what they didn't realize is there's a lot of long-term complications with the band. One of them being an esophageal stricture, where basically your esophagus closes on itself, which happened to me. So every time I would eat something, I would feel like it was stuck in my throat because my band was overfilled. So they took all the fluid out. I, of course, unfortunately regained all my weight back because now I'm like, I'm free. I can like eat whatever I want, which does not work, obviously, because I went back up to 270 pounds and I'm only 5'1". And so I was actually in the middle of my master's program. So I was working full-time, clinical full-time, school full-time, 2 kids. And so I just lost myself again, stopped going to the gym because I didn't have time. And then I had enough because I couldn't breathe walking from one side of the hospital to another on a flat surface. My feet hurt all the time because of plantar fasciitis. I just was having all of these kind of physical effects of the obesity. Luckily, still not had any of like the diabetes or hypertension or any of that comes, you know, with the long-term stuff. So I tried meds. They, you know, didn't really do a whole lot for me. There's a lot of newer meds out there now that work better than when I was looking at them. And then I decided to go back to surgery because I knew that tool that I had worked for me. I had lost 95 pounds with the band.
Right.
So I had the sleeve surgery. Unfortunately, probably because my esophagus wasn't quite right from all those years with the band. Because the other thing with the band is if foods get stuck, you throw up a lot. And so I had very, very severe reflux with the sleeve. And it was because part of my esophagus wasn't working right. So I ended up having to then have bypass surgery. So my last surgery almost a year ago was bypass surgery.
Okay.
So through all of that.
You tried them all for everyone. Now
I did. So, you know, and the thing is, that's what took my career change then from the hospital to the clinic, is where I work in the weight loss surgery center that gave me this tool that has improved my life significantly. And now I can hopefully inspire and encourage my patients to do the same, using the same tools and techniques that I've used to be successful.
I love that. So that's my favorite part of the whole story.
Yeah, that is fantastic because you can speak from a
personal
experience.
but
you
also
can relate to them.
a medical you
Right,
could
yeah, so I can
medically,
use,
too.
so I'm dual certified in family practice and acute care, so I was able to break away from acute care because nurse practitionership's a little different. Physician assistants can really work in any capacity because they have a lot of general training. Nurse practitioners are very specific to
Specialized.
certain specialties, and I did both on purpose, knowing that at some point in my life I was going to get older and have to get out of the hospital. And so this was just really the perfect opportunity for me to get out of the hospital into an outpatient setting.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. I never thought I'd be a 9-to-5 girl, but I love it.
Do you love it?
sure
Yeah,
you
it's-
do.
Yeah.
there's something about the consistency of it. Are you still in school?
So I just started my doctoral program. I actually had started one a couple years ago, but it was the program. I just, if things don't feel right and they're not really jiving with me, I'm like, if it's not a good vibe, I kind of am like, yeah, I'm good without it. And then, so I actually have 2 degrees from Alvernia. I was a psychology major. I graduated with a degree in psychology before nursing school. And then I went there for my BSN program. And I'm part of the alumni council. I sing in their choir. I do a lot of stuff with the university. And they have a PhD program, and I felt like I was a good fit. So I started that 2 weeks ago.
Awesome. See,
good for
Heather,
you.
Heather makes it okay for me to be in school for the rest of my life.
I've literally been my whole life,
the difference
basically.
your whole life. Yeah, I just started going again. So maybe I'll be in school till I'm like 70, and then I'll die and won't have to pay anything back.
Yeah,
there you
that's
go.
kind of the plan.
So, much like an attorney would do, I was curious, but also we've established your credibility now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to talk about some health things. It's one of the reasons that we've talked about health in the show. We've talked about and you've been a long time listener. You've heard us talk about where the government should be involved and where it shouldn't be involved, and the bad things that they have done, and hopefully maybe some good things that they've done as well. But there's a lot of confusion out there. There's a lot of mistrust. There's a lot of skepticism, whatever word you want to throw in there, especially now. I don't think we've ever lived through a time where people have mistrusted the government more, at least in our lifetime. So I want to start off. Food. Can you be addicted to food? Like a drug?
Absolutely. Absolutely. You can be addicted to food because in people like I, who was an emotional eater, you use it to numb out, just like you would use alcohol or drugs or something else. You're trying to numb a stressor or numb a feeling, and people turn to food for the same thing. They turn, people can be shopping addicts. Their addict just doesn't mean like some kind of substance abuse. You could be addicted to many different things, as we know, with sex addiction and porn addiction and like all of those different pieces of things that make you have this elated feeling. It's all about that like dopamine high.
I was going to say,
people
the
get it
science
from,
is the same, right?
some people get
you
it.
eat a cheeseburger and you get the same rushes.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it the same
It
kind
was
of
like
high?
I had that. So I totally, if I ever write a book, it's going to be called Cheeseburgers Were My Drug of Choice, because they were like, it was like Burger King was like my thing on
Your
the
go-to.
way
You went
home.
the Burger King burger. That
Burger
was
King
your-
burger. Yeah,
You couldn't find a better burger?
it was on my way home.
It was okay.
You
So you went with the convenience of it as
I
well.
did. Yeah, I did. It was on my, I mean, it was so bad to the point where I had to put my purse in the trunk of my car so I didn't have access to my wallet.
Wow.
That's how I knew it
Wow,
was a
that's-
true
That's
issue.
addiction.
Yeah, that's fascinating too, because it's like there's better options out there, but it was on the
Yeah.
way home and you just wanted the burger as fast as you
And
could.
I would get out of my car and get that damn purse out of my
Would you?
trunk
Wow.
and buy the burger. Yeah.
That's addiction.
Yeah.
That
And
is
then,
fascinating.
after bariatric surgery, there is a known phenomenon called transference addiction. So people who were once addicted to food now have this new life, they have this new lifestyle, and they will find other things to become addicted
Yeah.
to. Alcohol is actually very easy to get addicted
Yeah.
to after bypass surgery because of the reabsorption, because you have to drink a lot more to maintain that feeling. But also shopping addiction, you're able to fit in clothes that you've never been able to fit in before, and jewelry and shoes and all this stuff. So you transfer it to something
Yeah.
else that becomes
yeah.
an addiction.
I tell people all the time, and again, I'm not an expert by any means, but people need a vice. People need something to get away from
Right.
the terrible things. It's just, is
Yeah.
it a healthy one? So there's people I know, actually someone we interviewed on Moms and Mayhem, Amanda Van Grossi, she had an addiction. I forget what it was. What her drug of choice was.
It was meth.
Was it meth? Okay, so, but it's now she's addicted to exercise.
Yeah.
And that can all.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
you think, oh, well, that's healthy.
It's not always healthy.
But it's not always healthy because there's
you can
physical.
really take
You can
everything
take it too
over
far.
the edge to be
Yes, you
too
can.
far. Yeah, yeah, and gambling, all of these things that it's like you take it one step too far and then you're in this hole that you can't get out of.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're stuck forever.
Yeah.
But
You wake up one day addicted.
Yeah, but people do need a vice. Like people do need.
Yeah.
Like
You know
like
what? I was
there's
listening
got to be
to,
a healthy way, not a health necessary, but there, you have to be aware. Like this is what I need to numb,
Yeah.
and find a healthy way to do it.
Well, I was listening to your latest episode and it brought a thought. There was a comment about like what were the things that we really needed to learn. Basically, I think like as kids, like what could we have learned to be better functioning adults? And coping mechanisms is something that no one has ever taught.
Never.
Like how to cope with stress, how to, look at the other side and realize that there are options out there and that you don't have to numb your feelings. It's okay to feel feelings,
Yeah.
but you just have to learn how to deal with them.
Yeah, that's certainly fascinating. You speaking of addiction, I rarely, every once in a while, you'll message our Instagram page. And I never check it, so I apologize if you
We
were
still
waiting.
have
I don't know if I
You do.
did or not. I
You
don't
did
know.
back on, I think it was June. Like
Oh
15th.
gosh, I don't know.
I forget why, because I just happened to be looking at the Instagram. And there was a notification, and there was a message from you about Narcan.
Oh, with the free.
Yeah, I want to read it because I found it very interesting. Because not that I'm making this big
remember what
reveal.
it
For the
but,
families? Is that what it was for? Parents that have addicts or families that
well, no, this is different.
I was
It
talking about Narcan parties.
Yeah.
There's
So
Narcan
we're
parties?
all very liberal here. We're not revealing anything.
All right.
And I think liberals, when they defend stuff like free Narcan, their intentions are good, but they don't think about stuff like this. So I thought this was fascinating. So I'm going to read it here. Was just listening to the piece about Narcan. I haven't finished it yet because I am heading to rehearsal, but I have been on a few conferences and trainings on addiction over the years. I was shocked to find out there are actually Narcan parties with even teenage kids where someone purposely stays sober, lets everyone else get high, and then the sober person is ready with the Narcan in case someone overdoses. Insane to me. I agree that we need to help those with addiction, but open access to Narcan has caused situations like these where its purpose is misused, thus perpetuating drug use. Craziness.
That sounds to me like when I was in high school when everybody would take acid and one person would stay sane. Like that is bad enough. This is dangerous.
It is because you're really playing with that fine line where that overdose may not be recoverable with Narcan because sometimes it takes multiple doses of Narcan to help.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh wow. God,
Yeah.
that's terrifying. And I would assume it's really young people. Like if Narcan existed when I was in high school, I guarantee you we would have been at Narcan parties. Like they would have. I know people that would have, and that's so. I don't know. It's
hard. It's hard, because you think about that with a lot of things that, even the government decides to do. I hope many times it's with good intention, but then it's like those few people that take it a step too far or the wrong direction and make it look bad, and it's really bad for everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, assuming the intention was good, you then got to look at it. Okay, so there was unintended consequences here. One of them being Narcan parties. How do we revise this?
Right.
So many times I think our government puts something out there, a program out there, and is like, we did it.
Yeah.
Like the student loan relief. Like it's a good start, but there's going to be some unintended consequences. Maybe good. Maybe they're all good. Most likely they're not. Most likely there'll be some sort of fallout that we didn't intend. And we have to look at that. And we have to make it better. But like with so many things we do as a country, it's just we wash our hands of it. We did it, on to the next thing. Where I feel I've tried to get away from the label of being a Democrat or a liberal and call myself a progressive, where we're constantly trying to be better than we were the day before. Like I think that should be the mindset.
I think that should be everybody's goal, just to be a better human than you were the day before. We all make mistakes.
Right.
no
It doesn't
matter our
mean-
intentions.
Doesn't mean that giving free access to Narcan to help save people's lives was a bad idea.
Right.
Doesn't mean it's something that we should discontinue.
No.
But it is something that we should look at, like, how are people misusing this good idea?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Monitor it. I mean,
Instead of waiting for it to
But-
just go away on its own. Like
Right.
that.
but there are so many people across this country, across the world, I'm sure, that without Narcan would not either be here or would not have
Oh,
a
yeah.
child,
Right.
brother,
Absolutely.
sister,
Right.
aunt, uncle.
Absolutely.
Both things can be true. It can be,
Right.
there's people misusing it and there's people that needed it desperately.
Yeah.
And gave them a
absolutely.
second chance, or
Yeah.
a third chance, or a fifth chance, and this is the chance that's stuck. So both
Right.
things can be true.
Yep.
So I wanted to talk about a few things. I want to talk about the CDC and some of their sweeping changes, and I do want to get to how the government is involved and probably complicit in the obesity epidemic. So let's start with the CDC.
Sure.
As we talked about on the last episode, which was over a year ago, that you were on, we talked about the importance of listening to the CDC guidelines and following what they're saying, because they were the foremost authority, them and the WHO, they're the foremost authority on infectious diseases, and they have the best information available to us at the time, and we should listen to them. We should comply with them. Then recently, now that the pandemic is quote unquote over, which it really isn't,
Right.
it's just here to stay. It's not
Yeah.
going anywhere.
Yeah.
The CDC announced sweeping changes to how they deliver information, respond to health crisis, communicate information to the public, etc. With people already skeptical of the WHO and the CDC, was announcing this a mistake in this type of political climate? And I'm all for that, because I read about it, and they're basically just saying we want to be more transparent and communicate better.
Right.
But the
right.
way it's being reported is that they made this huge error in handling the coronavirus pandemic. I don't understand how this is going to be, this announcement, the way
Makes
it's been
it
announced,
better.
is going to be a good thing.
So, I think when, like I said, we were kind of living real time through COVID, real time science in your face. Like, nobody knew what this was. Nobody knew what was going on. No one knew how to treat it, how to prevent it, how to stop the spread of it. And I think actually, like, reflecting back on it and being honest and saying, hey, like, we fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
we did not do these things right isn't totally a bad thing.
No.
Because it's then how can we look at it next time? Because there will be a next time that something like this happens in the future. What can we do differently? What lessons can we learn from what we did wrong or what we did right, and then carry it forward to be prepared for, the next thing. And I was thinking about it, and I was really, I learned about the CDC and all this stuff in school, but I never really knew like the history of the CDC, and I'm like a huge history nerd. And I kind of wanted it to be like, okay, so if we move forward and we learn from our mistakes, like where did the CDC even really stem from, and what direction are they going, and why are they going that direction? And it was interesting to find out that the CDC actually was the Communicable Disease Center, and it's changed names multiple times over its history, and it was founded only in 1946. So it's not like this was triggered by like the Spanish flu or any of that. And it was actually for malaria control during World War II.
Really?
That makes sense.
So that was really like, if there was actually an Office of National Defense Malaria Control Activities, and that's where the CDC actually grew out of. So it had this really like global influence on the control of malaria. And the League of Nations was a thing back then, and the Rockefellers and all of this stuff. They were big, supporters, and it kind of grew into this branch of the U.S. Public Health Services. So that's kind of where it had come from. And it is actually based in Atlanta, not in D.C., because malaria was endemic in the southern United States. That's how it's got its home in Atlanta.
That's interesting.
I
That
know.
is really
Like I said,
interesting.
total nerd here.
So
Yeah.
that I get that. I'm with you on that. Talking to a reasonable group of people, which everybody who listens to our show is 100% reasonable. We've talked to every three of them, all three of them. But so I'm gonna land this plane. I promise. It's gonna sound like I'm getting off topic, but I was showing Leah this TikTok a couple hours ago about this old guy who was at a Chuck Grassley town hall,
And he's running again.
and
117 years old.
yeah, he's 100 million years old. The guy who was asking him the question was 5 million years old, and his question was, how do we protect ourselves? Or what are you going to do to protect us from this extreme socialist agenda? And then in the same breath, thanks Chuck Grassley for his hearing aids, which is a government-mandated program that lowers, that he has the option to buy them on Amazon for $800 instead of going to a doctor and spending $4,000.
Right.
It was a government-mandated bill that Chuck Grassley didn't even vote for. And by definition, by Republican definition, that's socialism. So he's asking how to protect himself from extreme socialism, and then thanks Chuck Grassley, who doesn't believe in socialism, for his socialist hearing aids.
Yeah, I think in any aspect of our life, whether it's government or not government, is you will take advantage of what serves you.
Yeah.
We're all very self-serving anymore. So if it doesn't serve me,
Out of sight, out of mind.
then
Yeah.
okay, I don't want anything to do with it, or I'm going to complain about it or whatever.
I'm with you on that too. My question is, there's 70 million people that voted for people like Chuck Grassley and Donald Trump and all that, who made the CDC the enemy of the people during the pandemic. It's not just that old guy. How do we talk to those 70 million people? How do we explain to them, by the CDC admitting fault, it doesn't mean that there was this big conspiracy to hide kids' smiles and inject Bill Gates' microchip into our arm?
I think, I was thinking back, like when Trump was president, all this stuff was going on, is if you look back at the history of like any president, of course there were people that didn't like them. Of course there were people that, voted against them, whatever. But the presence of social media and our interconnectedness has given everybody what they think is a voice, whether it's right or wrong. And they will shout it from the mountaintops, even if it is like the most horrific thing ever. And so they kind of, use these instances to kind of support their ideals that they get from people who want to look at the CDC in a negative light, promote the CDC in a negative light. They want someone to blame.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, President Trump blamed China, China for this. It was always like pointing fingers and who can we blame rather than looking at how can we support each other? How can we get through this together? It was more dividing than it was something that brought us together. And it really should have been a time where we came together to support each other, try to get through this with as little casualties as possible. So, keyboard warriors.
Yeah.
How do we reach someone like that, though?
I don't think you do, Jeff. I think that's what she's saying. There is no reaching those people.
I mean, I know people who think these things and are very much pro-Republican, very much pro-Trump, very much anti this, that, and the other thing. And there is literally no talking sense into them.
There's not.
And they were people that I thought maybe could think about things sensibly before, and they just don't.
Don't anymore.
They're just poisoned by it.
There was, I heard stories of people on their deathbed with COVID.
Meatloaf.
You're right. Who said, I still wouldn't have gotten the vaccine.
Yeah. That's just crazy to me. I don't get the logic behind that.
So going forward, we're just going to have to deal with the fact that there's half the country is literally insane.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Or deny science. I mean, as a scientist,
But
I
that's
imagine
insane,
that bothers you.
to deny science or not be open to the scientific method or understand it.
Exactly.
Like, this is something that everybody learned in 8th grade in the public school system.
Well, yeah, and part of the scientific method is you're trying to prove a hypothesis, and you're not always going to be right.
Yeah.
Right.
Edison took how many times to develop the light bulb, even if he didn't really develop the light bulb or whatever.
Right. No,
but he learned by the mistakes he made.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, nobody's going to get it right. And the CDC has a history of not doing things right, but we forget about it over time, and it's kind of like then they learn from those mistakes, and then we move forward. I mean, DDT was sprayed all over the United States because of their studies on malaria.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they were like, oops, that was a bad idea.
Yeah. We controlled malaria and opened up a whole
the whole
shitstorm.
Tuskegee, or however you say it,
Tuskegee
syphilis
Airmen,
study, all of that stuff was backed by the CDC and the government, and then it's like, oops, that was a bad idea.
Right.
But then we learn from it and we don't do that again. That's how internal review boards and things that, support research and make things that are sure they're done in a humane manner came about, because we don't always do that.
Well, no. I mean, and part of science is like a good scientist, from what I understand, I'm not a scientist, but the goal of the method is to prove yourself wrong. Really, you should go into it trying to prove your theory wrong. Mm-hmm. The goal isn't to prove your theory right. So, because if you go into it thinking I'm going to prove myself right, you can find a way to prove yourself right.
Yeah.
Which brings you back to the crazy Republicans. If they go online and they want to believe that the CDC and Joe Biden are killing them, they're going to find something.
Well, it's like you were saying, one of the latest episodes was, they will argue and argue and argue and argue and argue with you. But then when they realize they can't prove themselves right, they're like, all right, I got to go bye.
Shut down. I'm done with this. Yeah, that's exactly what they do.
Most recently, Mike Smay. Did you follow that?
I was surprised.
Me too.
By all of that, unfortunately.
Oh, man. What are you going to do? So let me ask you this. For anybody who's listening who's on the fence about trusting the CDC, the WHO, which Trump vilified right off the bat, should we trust them? Should we look at their guys? Should we question what they're telling us?
I mean, I think you should always question things. I think, if you don't question things, you're just going to live in ignorance, because you're just going to be like, oh, the CDC is the holy grail of medicine or healthcare or whatever. We should always listen to everything that they say. And obviously they've proved that that's not always true, because they don't always do things right either. But it's kind of the best that we have to go by. So, if they recommend masks, is it going to kill you to wear a mask? No. If you get COVID, could it kill you? Yes. Right. Weigh the pros and cons. Exactly. We're adults. Look at it from all aspects. Just don't be like, I don't want to wear a mask because, whatever, it messes up my lipstick. But, I don't know. It's kind of just ridiculous if we can't be adults about it. And, you can't always just put all your eggs in one basket, no matter what it is, whether it's the CDC or the WHO or, McDonald's or whatever. You just
Burger
can't. You gotta, not just Burger King burgers.
Gotta try Five Guys
I need some variety in my life.
Way back, Five Guys.
In and out on the West Coast.
In and out. Yeah. Fly out there.
So I have a question for you. The new booster. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, Jeff, but there's a booster.
No, this is a question that we wanted to ask. We were talking about earlier.
It hasn't been. What are they saying that it didn't go through human trials?
The report is that the FDA approved the new booster before the human trials were finished. Mm-hmm. And I was saying to her, if this is normal, because the flu shot comes out every year, I can't imagine that they have time to make an entirely new vaccine, go through human trials, and have it approved every year. So, again, this is the super stupid, not an expert by any means explanation I have in my head, where they have the base of the vaccine and all they have to do is tweak it for the new variants. Mm-hmm. So does it really need to go through human trials again, considering that it already did, and they're just tweaking it for the different variants and subvariants? In that case, it wouldn't bother me knowing that the human trials didn't finish.
Right. But
again, we're talking about optics. We're talking about people that believe that Hillary Clinton was kidnapping children and keeping them in a closet at Cosmo Pizza.
Oh.
So
I don't think I heard that detail.
It was one of the Q conspiracy theories out there. The guy who went and shot up the pizza place because he thought he was saving children.
Oh, great.
So we're talking. So to me, this looks like like this is going to, people are going to be like, fuck that, I'm not getting it. If they didn't, human trials, they didn't finish. So our question to you, I don't know if you have knowledge of this, but is this normal for a vaccine to be approved by the FDA after it's been out for a few years, if it hasn't gone through human trials?
So a lot of times when you're trialing a new drug or a new method of doing something, if the trials are going on and they are seeing a lot of efficacy from the trial and things are moving forward at a certain rate, they will end the trial early, because it, especially in this situation where it's like we need to get this new booster out there. So it's like, okay, we're not seeing a lot of complications from it. Nothing really new information is coming from it. There's a lot of positive outcomes from it. Let's get this going.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
So it's fairly normal, not just with COVID vaccines, but
No,
drugs in general.
Yeah. I mean, the flu vaccine is kind of a whole different subject on its own, because it's been around for so many years. We know the most common strains. And then if you think about it, the southern hemisphere has their winter when we have our summer, and vice versa. So the flu down there is what they base our vaccines off up here, what strains they're seeing down there. So it's not just on a whim, it's what strains are prominent in their winter that then translate into the vaccines for our coming winter.
But again, the vaccine itself isn't that different, right? It's
they just tweak it for those different strains.
Right, so we already know that it's not going to kill the
and
entire
the
population.
thing, with COVID is, yes, there are different strains, but basically their basic function is mostly the same.
Yeah,
so,
and that's where the vaccine that we have now came from, right? COVID's been around for 60-something years.
Yeah, and they based it off of studies that were already up and going. They just couldn't gain a lot of traction because it wasn't as prevalent as it was, and then as prevalent as it became, the research that was already ongoing was just elevated astronomically, because we needed that vaccine to come, quickly.
So this is my problem. This headline will create panic in some people, and it will feed their conspiracy mind that the government is out to put something in our bodies that is not kosher.
It's a microchip. Just kidding.
Do you think, as a medical professional, that there should be some sort of, I don't want to say restrictions, but restrictions on what the media puts out sometimes, health-wise?
Or how they report it. Like, that headline is completely irresponsible.
Right,
like, maybe the article explains exactly what you just explained, and if everybody read it, if 100% of the people read it, they'd be like, oh, okay, that doesn't seem
right. Well, that's the problem, is a lot of times people don't take the time to read the details. They just read the headline, and then once you get into the details, things start to make a little more sense. And I don't think you're ever going to get away from that, because as technology continues to grow, our attention spans continue to shrink, and a freaking goldfish has a longer attention span than a human does anymore. So it's like, I don't think you're going to be able to get away from that, unfortunately.
I don't either.
So I want to get into back to food.
Yeah.
Because this is your area of expertise now. I've struggled with food addiction. I'm a binge eater. I'll go through weeks and weeks trying to eat healthy and stuff like that and be successful. And then I'll go right back to just eating a lot of whatever I can find. And my entire family has done it. And I think it's fascinating, the psychological aspect of eating, where as kids, I don't know if this was the same in your household, but there was times where I wouldn't be allowed to get up from the kitchen table until I ate everything on the plate.
I literally have a picture of me somewhere. My mom took crying over a plate of spaghetti because I wouldn't eat it because I hated spaghetti.
Right. Clean your plate.
Or even if you don't, even if you love what you're eating,
you
gotta clean your plate because of the children in Africa that are starving.
Exactly.
Or
your plate really
I
doesn't
slaved
affect.
over this meal. You're not going to Right. Whereas now,
Right. And so
and I'm sure our parents didn't have ill intent, but
right.
if they knew what they knew now, they probably wouldn't have made us finish our plates. But
And there's been a big shift to try to get away from what is called diet culture. And diet culture really came from the different things the government put into place as far as dietary guidelines and those aspects of, finish your plate, eat till you're gonna burst kind of thing. And
the
oh,
food
it tastes so
pyramid.
good. Like, just keep eating. And now it's kind of like, eat to fuel your body, not to, but it can still be pleasurable. It's just learning how to be mindful with it, really enjoying the entire experience of a meal, which is something we don't do. We rush through a meal to get to our next destination. So we don't know how to savor things. We don't know how to truly enjoy things. And then it just kind of sends us back into those bad habits. It's so easy to fall back to.
yeah, and I can see it. I feel like, our parents got it from what they were hearing from our government, right? Because
Right.
at the time,
So,
the food pyramid. Like,
yeah.
let's talk about how bullshit that
So
was.
back
And
to
still
my
is, really,
my
right?
love of history. I do know a few things about the history of the development of the food pyramid and the obesity epidemic. But the interesting thing is, we kind of think the government guidelines were very recent, but they really, really aren't. So if you think back to like what a 1950s kitchen looked like, right? Where mom and pop were not really obsessed with calories. It was prior to the start of the obesity epidemic, and it was really rare, even though food was readily available. So we think like, oh, well, we have all this access to fast food now, so that's why it's happening, or we're not as active, so that's why this is happening. And there's a ton of different like speculations around where this started, but around that time they really started to use refined carbohydrates and starches, which kind of changed the game. And the low carb diet, interestingly, was not even in recent history. It was like in the 17 to 1800s, where some dude like was overweight and did all these experiments on himself and found it came from starches and carbohydrates. So he actually like kind of did the first low carb diet, and he lost weight and he kept it off. But the problem is to really live a nutritious life, you have to get in all of the three main macronutrient groups. So macronutrients are proteins, carbs, and oh my god, I can't think. I measure my own every day.
Fats, oils.
So fats are definitely a part of it. And then you have those micronutrients that come from fruits and vegetables, which a lot of times is lacking in the modern American diet, or the standard American diet, which is very sad. Because we don't get a lot of those things. So we don't get the micronutrients, we don't get calcium, we don't get iron, all of those things. And that guy that did that experiment on himself in the 1800s stopped eating bread, drinking milk, drinking beer, sweets, and potatoes, which were promoted to be not beer, but the rest of it was promoted to be part of the American diet when the food pyramid came out.
Yeah.
Well, I have the food period from 1992 here. Okay. The biggest part of it, I forget how this. I think it went from the bottom up. Like you're supposed to eat the most at the bottom, right? So this is when all of us were growing up.
Yeah.
This is when this is what started the obesity epidemic. This is why America's the fattest country in the world right now. The bottom, the most you're supposed to eat, the most servings is bread and cereals.
Yeah. Yep. It was the starches. Right? Yep.
Why? Because wheat is subsidized by the U.S. government. Still
6
is.
servings of bread, cereal, pasta, and starchy vegetables because they were low in fat and cholesterol.
A day.
So
a day.
A day.
A day. Yeah.
How do you even eat that much a day? I would blow up.
Well, and then the second one is vegetables and fruits.
Yep.
That should be on the bottom, right?
It should be.
Definitely be on that.
Dairy shouldn't even be on there, other than maybe like a yogurt here and there.
Right, here and there.
But do kids have to drink milk?
No, they don't.
Bullshit,
no,
right? It's not
really,
it's not good
humans
for
weren't
you.
made to consume dairy.
Right.
No, we weren't.
Other than our mother's milk.
Other than breast milk.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Which you can, get off of around
right.
fairly early in life.
Yes.
obviously cheese. I mean, cheese isn't good for you, right?
Right.
Like, there's no
And
health benefit. Like if you gave up cheese forever, or if you just gave up dairy forever and never had another dairy product ever, you'd be fine, right?
You'd be all right.
You'd be all right. Meat, poultry, and nuts are in the same category, which is weird because I feel like nuts. It's a raw food. It's good for you, right? That should be down there with the fruits and vegetables, right?
Kind of. I mean, it's a
Nuts and
protein.
seeds.
It's a protein source. I think the idea was to put it there as a protein source along
Okay.
with the meats.
And then fats and oils at the very top. But
Yeah.
we know that there's certain fat that's good for you now,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
certain
Yeah.
oils that are a benefit to you
Yeah.
as well. So there's not enough. I mean, there's not enough detail in
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
this. you
no,
know?
absolutely. I mean, the food pyramid should must really be turned upside down, basically, for the
Yeah.
most part.
Do they still use it?
So they have My Plate now, I think, is the new thing. It's kind of how your plate should look, which probably still has a cup of milk next to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But what I found interesting when I was looking at the history, which is in one of my favorite books to listen to, is the Obesity Code, and he really talked about the epidemic and how it kind of came about, was in the 1950s when they started promoting these refined carbs and starches. Men were having more heart attacks than they had in previous generations. And they thought it had to do with dietary fat. So the low fat craze came at that time. But the problem is when you take one macronutrient out of food, like I said, you have to replace it with another. And taking fat out of foods needs to be replaced with carbohydrates, sugars, or fake sugars to make it taste good, because otherwise it doesn't last. So now we have all these shelf-stable foods because of high fructose corn syrup and preservatives, and now it tastes good because it's full of sugar. And so we really developed this sugar addiction.
Yes.
Because everything was laden with sugar at that time. And where did I put this?
And it is, I'm telling you, sugar, I don't want to speak for, people that have been addicted to other types of drugs and how strong, a sugar addiction is compared to that, but it is fucking strong. Because Leo will tell you, I am on an endless search for something to replace soda. And I found this brand called Zevia, which uses stevia, which is a natural sweetener.
It's gross.
More natural, yes, but
still not good for you.
So there are actually studies done. There's a thing called a functional MRI where you can look at the brain and the way it lights up. And what they found was sugar is actually more addicting than cocaine. Your brain lights up more at the look of a candy bar.
I believe it.
Than it does drugs. However, sugar substitutes are actually 400 times more sweet than sugar. So then your body craves more and more and more because it's sweeter than sugar. So it's kind of like this just whole round and round cycle, unfortunately.
We are currently addicted to Philadelphia water ice.
Oh, yeah.
It's the greatest thing ever.
That's our thing. It's horrible.
Oh, God, it's so good. So I think what people don't realize is how much the deck is stacked against us when it comes to food and what we put in our body, right? Because the government subsidizes corn, which is the main ingredient of high fructose corn syrup, which is in everything.
Yeah.
The government subsidizes sugar, which is in everything.
Well, I mean, you have your Coca-Cola sitting there, and I'm pretty sure they put a whole lot of money towards, what they want to get out of the government.
Exactly.
Too.
Yeah.
Well, talk about a segue. There's like 7 companies that own all of the food products that we eat.
Yep.
Coca-Cola being one of them,
Kellogg's.
PepsiCo, Kellogg's, Kraft, Nestle, which the CEO of Nestle is infamous a few years ago saying that water shouldn't be free for people. Like it should be a commodity that someone owns.
They bottle their own.
Which I've never had another bottle of Nestle water since then.
Yeah.
But they own everything, so you can't avoid this. Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson. Those are 2 companies that make drugs.
Yeah.
So the connection here, I mean, it's so clear to me. And I don't know how it's not clear to everyone, but it's so clear to me, it's so obvious that these companies own the food, and they're purposely trying to get us addicted to this. through the sugar that they put in it, so that we then have to buy the drugs that they sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
High
you're
blood
right.
pressure medicine,
Diabetes.
insulin.
Which are not cheap
Right? No.
or free.
So they're not only just
treatment
making a
for-
profit off of the food that we're addicted to and that we can't stop buying, but then we are on medication forever as a result of it.
Yeah.
That's not medication that is meant to cure our ailments. It is meant to maintain them. It's
Right.
meant to keep them
Right.
at a
Right.
level that's livable for a long period of time.
Right.
Why?
Money. That's
Money,
why.
yeah.
I know.
It's
but
money. It's all money.
what can people do to fight against this? Because it's not going to change. Like this part is not going to change. Unless everybody got together and agreed to never purchase another one of these products again, this will stay the way. In fact, these companies will merge. I forget who just bought. Was it Moderna? It was Coke Industries. I think it was either Coke or
As in the Koch brothers?
yeah, General Mills, or it might have even been Johnson & Johnson. Either way, they have consolidated a few companies that own the food. And it's even consolidated more since I put this together. So how do people fight it individually in their own lives? How do they avoid this?
You know, I think it's really hard because we are living in a world that's so fast paced that you want convenience. Nobody has time to, sit at home and make a good meal most of the time anymore.
Right.
So these companies will continue to perpetuate that cycle of fast and convenient and easy. And they put these things in like aspartame, like sugar, these things that make their food addictive, and you need it, and so you can't live without your Diet Coke, or you can't. I mean, I can't live without my Starbucks, but that's a whole nother story. Like they just will continue to market to kids. They will market to families like, hey, this is quick and convenient and easy, but they don't tell you that like it's killing you from the inside out.
Yeah.
Right.
Because they just want to sell a product.
I know you're supportive of it, though. I joke about going to the farmer's market every week, which we have to go to tomorrow, by the way.
Oh, okay.
But I do it because there's less of the temptation to buy the box stuff there.
That is true.
And it forces me to think about what the meal is going to be. And I do like to cook.
Right. Yeah.
And I like to cook when I hated cooking for just myself when it was just me. Like, to me, that was depressing. So I did eat a lot of processed food. But I like the idea of making a meal from scratch. And there's less of a temptation to buy the processed food.
We have to
and it's
realize, like, in our community, how lucky we are to have multiple farmers markets
Right.
and grocery stores, because, a lot of the higher rates of obesity are in the urban areas where they don't have access to farmers markets. They don't have access to good foods. And even programs like WIC. Like, I had WIC when I was pregnant with Jacob. I was a poor college student. But what you get from them is cereal, milk, peanut butter. You don't get whole nutritious foods that are good for you nor the baby.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank God they paid for formula, but it's even the government programs are very limiting on what you're able to get.
Well, all the
Yeah.
stuff you listed there, it's all stuff that is subsidized
Yeah.
through the government.
Yep.
And there's something too about buying from local vendors and things like that makes you feel proud. So,
Right,
that's
exactly.
what
Like
but
you're supporting your local community when you do that. There are some really awesome initiatives out there. There's a guy, he has several videos on YouTube, grew up in LA, lives in LA. He takes the strips of grass, between the sidewalk and the road and build them into community gardens.
Oh,
So
that's
he's
awesome.
using the limited existing space
Wow.
within the city to build gardens, to get the kids out and get the kids involved, and then be able to offer this food to the community members. So it's kind of like those types of community programs that are sometimes overshadowed by the big corporations really need to be highlighted and more readily available.
What about especially for people that maybe don't, in those areas that you talked about, that don't have access to fresh whole foods? What about something like a program like HelloFresh, which we've used, where they send you the ingredients? Is there any negative to that? It seems like they're
I used HelloFresh. I've used Home Chef. They aren't super transparent about all of their ingredients, which I wasn't super keen on once I started getting into more whole food ways of living. Mm-hmm. So I went with Sunbasket, where you can actually choose your dietary preferences. So you can choose a vegan diet, you can choose Mediterranean, you can choose paleo, these different things, and then they send you recipes based on those dietary choices. So a lot of those things are so great. They're so convenient because it comes to the house. Everything except usually olive oil and like salt and pepper are included in the bag to make the recipe. However, for underprivileged persons, they are quite expensive.
They're very expensive.
Unfortunately. And now, if you look at it in proportion to going out to eat, it's a lot cheaper for a family of 4 to get a Sunbasket meal because their portion sizes are fucking ridiculous. Like I would get one for 2 people, and like we would have leftovers for days. But they base it on the American portion sizes too, probably. But it is very costly, so it's kind of not really a realistic, affordable option for people who don't have access to real
Is it
foods.
more expensive per meal, I guess, than what you would find at a grocery store?
I think it just depends on, what you're kind of doing with your food. So, of course, like fresh fruits and vegetables, the prices continue to go up, unfortunately, and it is quite expensive. But frozen vegetables really are just as healthy as fresh vegetables.
Yeah.
So it's finding those options that fit into your budget and realizing that you can pop a microwavable bag of broccoli in, feed your family with it, and it's just as good as a fresh head of broccoli, but a lot more affordable.
That's good to know. I never knew if it was...
Yeah, no, they're not really... Like, the best thing to do is always look at the ingredients list. So if you're looking for foods that are boxed or frozen and they have the ingredients list, if you can read and recognize the words on, the ingredients list, that's always a good clue that it's a more healthy option. But really, a lot of frozen vegetables are basically like flash frozen. They're just frozen with no preservatives.
Oh,
and so then you can just, make them and have a healthy option.
Which that's the key too. That's another reason why, because that's a whole other, and we don't have time to go into it today, but that's a whole other thing. Like when you're going to a Giant or a Weiss, the produce that you're picking from is full of preservatives and stuff to make sure that it has to be so it doesn't rot. Like where it's being shipped from, it would rot by the time it got there. That's something else to consider. Again, another reason why I like to go to the farmer's market is because
and like I said, you're supporting your local community, which always kind of makes
so if you can do that
better.
And I tell you, if nothing else, it's way cheaper than the Giants and the Weisses and the Food Lions. And
I kind of like the my husband loves to do like the Hornings, like they're like the dented kind of can store. So they have like produce that's expiring. Then there's things like Misfit Market, I think it's called, where they will ship you fruits and vegetables that are not normal looking, that like grocery stores won't put out on the shelf because it's not like the perfect banana.
Really?
And you get a box full of fresh produce cheaper because it's abnormal
it has
looking,
imperfections,
or it's imperfected. People,
it's like the produce manager at a grocery store will pick and choose
the best looking
stuff, and anything that has an imperfection or a mark on it or looks indented or something like that, they know that people are going to skip over that, so they'll send it back and get a refund.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
And then this company that you're talking about will buy it at pennies on the dollar because it's just a loss for the produce company, and then they sell it fairly cheap. It's a genius idea because it's perfectly good. Otherwise, it just looks.
But so my husband does like the dented can stores, and then it's like whatever you don't find there, go to Aldi's, because Aldi's is kind of a cheaper version, but they have really good options at Aldi's anymore. I mean, you can get some really diet friendly stuff there, and then hit like the Giant or the Redners for whatever else is that you couldn't find at these other stores. So you end up saving money.
My problem is I despise grocery shopping at grocery stores. But I love the farmer's market. I can't believe we're talking about it.
It's weird.
It's not weird. I got the kids loving it too now. They love it.
Yeah,
You
I
were
think it's
about to
fantastic.
read something from your history book, and we got off the topic.
Yeah,
and I'm
that's-
just
yeah,
really
that's
curious
okay.
as to what
So,
you're going to read.
We were kind of talking about like the government and their kind of control over things in conjunction with these corporations.
Yeah.
And how, they control our dietary modifications and what we do. And I kind of found this interesting, like I said, it's from the Obesity Code by Jason Fung. It's an amazing book. I definitely recommend everyone listening to it or reading it. And so it's called the Dietary Guidelines. So it says the issue was finally settled in 1977, not by scientific debate and discovery, but by governmental decree. George McGovern, then chairman of the United States Senate Select Committee on Nutrition and Human Needs, convened a tribunal, and after several days of deliberation, it was decided that henceforth dietary fat was guilty as charged. No studies around it, nothing. Not only was dietary fat guilty of causing heart disease, not by any scientific means, but they also stated that it caused obesity since fat is more calorie dense. So when you look at calories of carbohydrates, calories of protein, calories of fat, fat is like 9 grams per whatever versus carbs and protein, which is 4. So it's more calorie dense than carbs and protein. So this resulted in the dietary goals for the United States. An entire nation and soon the entire world would now follow nutritional advice from a politician. This was a remarkable break from tradition. For the first time, a government institution intruded into the kitchens of America. Mom used to tell us what we should and shouldn't eat, but from now on, Big Brother will be telling us. And he said, eat less fat, eat more carbohydrates. Several specific dietary goals were set forth, including raising consumption of carbohydrates until they constitute 55 to 60% of your daily calories.
Oh my God.
Decrease fat consumption from approximately 40% of calories to 30%, of which no more than 1/3 should come from saturated fat. So with no scientific evidence, the formerly fattening carbohydrate made a stunning transformation. While guidelines still recognize the evils of sugar, refined grain was as innocent as a nun in a convent. I love this book.
Wow.
Its nutritional sins were exonerated and henceforth reborn and baptized into the healthy whole grain. Where was there any evidence? It hardly mattered. The goals were now nutritional orthodoxy. Everything else was heathen. If you didn't toe the line, you were ridiculed. The Dietary Guidelines for Americans, a report released in 1980 for widespread public consumption, followed the recommendations of the McGovern report closely. The nutritional landscape of the world was forever changed. That guideline is now still updated every 5 years, which spawned into the infamous food pyramid in all of its counterfactual glory, he says. So the foods that form the base of the pyramid, the ones that we should be eat every single day, like you said, are the breads, the pastas, and the potatoes. These were the precise foods that we had previously avoided to stay thin. So a lot of this actually came from a guy who wanted to prove that fat was the cause of obesity. However, when he studied other countries, he didn't find that to be true. It did not cause heart disease. It did not cause obesity, but he changed his focus to the very few countries where those people probably were genetically predicated to
Heart
disease. And that's where a lot of this came from a falsified study, because he wanted to be a part of the new American diet. And the American Heart Association backed those claims.
So was this guy a doctor?
No, he was a researcher, but not
like
a
a
doctor.
research doctor?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he was a doctor, but I forget his name, honestly. I think he talks about it somewhere in the book, but it just kind of blew my mind that everything that we knew growing up about our diets was based on a falsified
Was
study
based on a lie.
backed by the government.
Yeah. And everything we learned in school too, like, and to group all fats together in one, like the fat in an avocado
has
It's good.
immense health
Yeah,
benefits, whereas
so
the
good.
fat in a potato chip does not.
Right, or vegetable oil.
Right,
like vegetables shouldn't even be oiled. Like it doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
And he goes on then to talk about sugar. So he said inevitably sugar consumption increased, and from 1820 to 1920, new sugar plantains in the Caribbean and American South increased the availability of sugar intake, which then plateaued from about 1920 to 1977. Even though, quote, avoid too much sugar was an explicit goal of the 1977 dietary guidelines for Americans, consumption continued to increase every year until the year 2000. So with our focus being on fat, we took our eyes off the ball,
Sugar.
and the sugar just kept increasing and increasing because everything was low fat or low cholesterol. They weren't paying attention to how much sugar these companies were putting in said
which
low
ultimately
fat
turns into
foods.
fat anyway.
Yep. So like I said before, food processors figuring this out because they're smart, increase added sugars in processed foods for flavor.
And hence we're all addicted. The entire country's addicted to sugar.
Yep.
It sounds very similar to the, to me. It's infuriating to me that the government can be like, oh, we're going to back this, and this is going to be the way it goes, and we're not going to talk to any doctors, and we're not going to talk to any scientists.
It wasn't studied. It wasn't scientifically proven. They just said this is the way it is.
This is the exact.
It's abortion. It's Rogan.
Abortion and the opioid epidemic.
Well, yeah, I
This
mean,
is
we
all
were
the
talking about
same
dope
playbook.
sick earlier. Dope sick just blew my mind in the way that a pharmaceutical company can specifically target different places within the United States known to being prone to injury from work and be like, we have this great new drug. Here, try it. Here, try it. Here, try it. And the next thing you know, you have entire towns addicted.
Yeah.
It was
terrifying to watch.
It was hard to watch, but it was very mind-blowing at the same time.
Yeah. And it makes sense. Of course that's how it happened.
Yeah.
You
And
know
then
what
it's
I mean?
like, well, of course you build a tolerance to it. So we know that people who use medications like that over a period of time build tolerance. So then they need more. So then the next higher dose came out, and then the next higher dose came out.
Right.
And people within that pharmaceutical company were like, this is dangerous.
Yeah,
like,
they
we
were.
cannot
We can't do this anymore, yeah.
And they're like, no, just keep going.
doing
Just
it.
keep
They're
going.
fine.
Just keep
Well,
going.
and then that's the thing. The financial crisis in 2008, the opioid epidemic, the food. Nobody is held accountable. Nobody goes to jail for this, and they should.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't these money hungry sociopaths keep doing it? Because they know they can get away with it.
They have nothing stopping them.
So we have to end it there. I hate to have to end it because there's a million other things I'd like to talk to you about.
I can talk all night long.
Food, when it comes to mental health, is another subject that we never even got to. But so we'd love to have you back at some point and hit all the things that we didn't. But I've enjoyed this conversation so much. We forgot to take a break.
I know I have to
for a
pee.
commercial, so we're just going to throw that in there.
Do you have to pee? Oh my God, we're the worst.
So and we all have to
hosts
pee,
ever.
and we have to feed the dog. So perfect time to end it. Heather, thank you so much for being here.
Of course.
I
Yes,
hope
Heather,
this.
thank
I
you.
hope this helps people that struggle with food and struggle with addiction to food. I hope it helps you all out there. Maybe take the first step to avoiding that. And for those of you thinking about the bad surgery, the bypass surgery, hopefully it gives you a pause. Think about what you're actually doing and what commitment it's going to take to be successful, because not everybody's successful with this. And the repercussions for not following the program, I hear, can be pretty terrible.
Yeah.
So I hope this has
Before
reached
you
some
go,
of your...
can I say something, please?
Yeah.
If you had advice for anybody that is interested in the surgery or looking to get it, what are the two most important things you think you would tell any patient about it?
So obviously it's not a decision to take lightly. It's a big decision. You're altering your anatomy. You're going under major surgery. So it's definitely think through it. Make sure that you have support systems in place, whether it be your loved ones or a friend or a group of people who have been through the surgery before, because it is immensely easier when you have that support. And try your best to put good habits into place before surgery, because the earlier you can develop good habits, the easier it'll be to continue them, because it is so easy to have a life stressor or something happen and you just fall back into old habits.
Like with any addiction.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice.
Exactly.
Fantastic advice. So until next time, which you will hear from us on Tuesday, you are entitled to your own opinions. You're not entitled to your own facts.
Fuck you, American food period.
Sad
Pyramid.
diet.
Period.
Sad diet.
Fuck
Sad
you.
diet.
Fuck all the way off. This is the Ever-Evolving Truth. For Leah, Heather, I'm Jeff. We will see you.
The Ever-Evolving Truth is written, produced, and edited by the amazing partners at White Horse Media Group. Follow us on all social media at The Ever-Evolving Truth. Subscribe and follow us on YouTube for additional content related to the show. You can also follow us at White Horse Media Group for additional content unrelated to the show. Thanks for listening.